All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome on in. John McKechnie here, hanging out on this beautiful Tuesday evening. We're gonna be talking some best ball this evening. We're also gonna, just full on go through an entire draft, full thing live. So we'll get to that here in just a bit. But been writing up, if you haven't noticed, some best ball content over at RotoWire, specifically on the NFL stuff. And today I went ahead and posted something about wide receivers. And that's a continuation of a series I've done. I did some running backs, did some quarterbacks as well. So, receiver, obviously, a very fickle, interesting position to dig into. Extremely important to get it right when it comes to best ball. But there's a lot of ways that you can, get it right. So I wanted to kind of start things off in this article. I wish or hope you can see it reasonably well. But basically, had our data science guys go ahead and dig up. uh, Sorry, one second. Got a comment here. Yeah, Fantasy Meatball chimes in. It is best ball time, best time of the year, which is basically the next 7 months or so. But basically, we pulled some data from the last five, I would think it was, best ball manias over at Underdog, and we just kind of distilled down to see when it was optimal to draft receivers in these particular contests. So, as you can imagine, early on, you're going to get a higher hit rate from those guys. So, receivers that have been drafted in the first round, going back to 2021, they have averaged 9.37 usable weeks out of 14 weeks. So we kind of scaled it to just the regular season, the playoffs, kind of a beast of its own, but you want to be able to get into the dance, right? So you want to be able to advance and win your pod or at least come in second. Great to see my guy Jamie in here as well. So on average, your first rounders, like the market, whoever the market is kind of deemed as worthy of being a first rounder, they've been right. They've been like the hit rate on those have been largely a lot better than those of running back, and the drop off is kind of steep too. So like basically, Puka Nakua was sort of like the inflection point this past year where he was right at that 1-2 turn, just kind of floating around all throughout draft season. People were starting to get freaked out a little bit during training camp when Matthew Stafford was like just hanging out in some sort of futuristic training table seemingly all day. So I mean, things were getting a little bit buggy there, and people were starting to worry about Puka Nakua, and that kind of feeds into this idea of like what kind of guys end up going in the second round as opposed to the first round, whereas his ADP kind of slips due to a little bit of uncertainty there. Get in the third round, like, so basically what I'm trying to say here is that rounds 2 through 4 or so are pretty flat as far as like your average usable weeks are concerned. You're usually going to get about 6 usable weeks. Just to define that for everybody, that's finishing as wide receiver 27 or better in a given week. So usually, so basically, batting about 500 is what you want from these guys during the regular season. Every other week at the minimum, you want to be able to be having these guys in your lineups, and then gets into kind of crapshoot territory. And as you can imagine, as you get deeper down into the drafts, there are fewer players that are getting selected regularly. Everyone's just kind of spraying the board at different positions. Once you get into the 12th, 13th, 14th round, that type of thing, obviously your hit rate's going to drop down a little bit on top of that. But, it's still crucial to get these end game wide receivers right, because, and I'll fly back up there in a bit, but here's a list that we put together, sort of like the who's who of league winners, guys that really not only like beat their ADP but smashed it. Probably were prominently featured in most advancing lineups, maybe even winning lineups in a lot of cases. So Puka, his rookie year back in 2023, he was a last round dart. Hunter Renfro back in 2021. I don't remember his big season quite as well. I must have just been sleeping on him. As many, of course, were QJ. Actually, had a huge year this past year as a 13th round guy with 8 usable weeks. Alec Pierce himself, he was a 16th round ADP type of guy. He had 7 usable weeks. So I mean, that's an incredible ratio for out of Pierce. And good timing on his part. He's going to be up for free agency this offseason, and that's the kind of year you want to have when people are about to throw the bag at you. Cordell Patterson in there, of course. Michael Wilson had to feature in there as well. QJ and Alec Pierce, once again, on both of their sides, both of them in back-to-back years, being huge values. So it felt like the market just poo-pooed for whatever reason, both QJ and Alec Pierce. I actually wrote about it in this article as to why both of those players were undervalued coming into this year. In QJ's case, it felt like the Chargers had kind of signed over him, and just, you bring in Keenan Allen, you bring in Trey Harris, you're going to build your offense around Lad McConkey. They even draft a guy in Aronde Gaston. It's like, okay, like they sort of just threw to QJ out of necessity in 2024. It's not going to be the same thing in 2025. That ended up obviously not being the case. And, with Pierce, of course, it was sort of like, okay, I mean, like he can do like the deep threat stuff. Like he definitely showed that, but that offense is, I mean, Daniel Jones throwing it, and you've got Michael Pittman and Josh Downs. They spent a first rounder on Tyler Warren. Like, where are the targets coming from? And we kind of underestimated just how good Alec Pierce could be. And we just sort of discounted what he did, sort of as a bit of an introduction in 2024. And then Christian Kirk in 21 and Darnell Mooney in 2024 are some of the best late round receivers that we've had in the last few years as far as best ball is concerned. I went ahead and I broke down this little chart here. And basically, I tried to, using some of those tools that we have over at RotoWire, we've got like tons of crazy data stuff that like I'm still trying to wrap my head around. But one thing that I can kind of conceptualize is targets per route run. Because a lot of the time when you're looking at these guys late in drafts, are they decoys? Maybe they're not playing a ton of snaps, or maybe they are playing a lot of snaps, and that can be kind of like a false signal because they are running a ton of routes and their targets per route run are like under 14%, under 12%, under 10%, something like that. And you can kind of run into these guys that are false flags, not the right word, but guys that you can get attached to the playing time variable, but what they do with that playing time is extremely, extremely important. So I wanted to kind of go ahead and grab a look at the guys that were going, I believe, between pick 180 and 215 in last year's, best ball drafts, and see how they performed as far as targets per route run were concerned. And these were the guys that helped win people their leagues. It helped people win their contests. It was Alec Pierce, it's Michael Wilson, Quentin Johnston, Troy Franklin, and Parker Washington. And I tried to take a look a little bit further as to, some clues. And I threw a table in there as well. Michael chimes in here. It is difficult to evaluate Michael Wilson's draft stock. There's a wide range of outcomes for his year this year. And here in a few minutes, I'll stop rambling on, and we'll get to the main event here. We'll get to the draft here in a minute, but I just wanted to show you guys what I've been working on, and we'll be kind of doing these throughout draft season. I'll do at least one stream a week where I'm just kind of telling y'all, it's like get an extra lecture instead of just doing the reading in class back in college or something like that. But yeah, in Wilson's case, he had such a crazy, I guess the parlance that the best ball bros like to use is the crazy run out, right? Because I think that we sort of had like an incomplete grade on him. He was a guy that was playing a lot, but those empty calorie type of routes. Like he was only getting targeted on like 14% of his routes through his first 2 years. And you coming into this year, you're kind of projecting a bigger year from Marvin Harrison Jr. After kind of a disappointing rookie year, and you know that Trey McBride's a top 25 pick, so it's like where is the target volume going to come from with Wilson? But Harrison gets hurt, and Wilson just kind of himself, performance wise, just takes this pretty significant step forward and proves that he is not only like a solid per target player, but a guy that can handle like a true workhorse volume. So I think the last I saw, Michael, that Wilson and Harrison are basically now a ADP toss up. And I think that's going to be a really kind of like interesting lightning rod that people are trying to get right during this draft season. So I'll certainly be sure to kind of bring that up once we get to the draft portion of this stream. And I tried to go ahead and isolate some more guys looking at the ADP for this year that I think are going to be of similar levels of importance as the guys that we were just talking about were last year. Like obviously Alec Pierce is going to have a different ADP now, right? Michael Wilson, same deal. Quentin Johnston, maybe to a lesser extent. He's not going to get drafted in the 170s, but he's not going to be drafted probably in the top 100 either. So basically, what I wanted to do with this table was grab guys going from pick 170 to 228, so we can cast a bit of a wider net as far as this is concerned, because these drafts right now, they go 20 rounds. Once we get past the NFL draft, then we're going to scale it back to 18. But on Underdog right now, you're getting 20-round drafts, so you can go a little bit crazier with your player pool knowledge. So that basically takes us from wide receiver 73 with Shamir DK all the way to wide receiver 92 with Rashad Bateman. And within that, just tried to kind of where was that targets per route run? How did that profile? And in the Tennessee guys' cases, both in DK and Alec Eomenora's cases, like both of those guys, I felt like had promising samples as rookies. I know that it wasn't great in Tennessee generally, and there's sort of like the tail risk when it comes to drafting these guys right now, where we don't know what Tennessee is going to do in this offseason. They have tons of money to spend. I think they have like $90 million in cap space. They got a totally new coaching staff, new offensive coordinator, of course, with Brian Dable. You got year 2 of Cam Ward. So it would make sense for them to kind of like aim for the top of the market. And that obviously could hurt both DK and Eomenor. I think the DK might be the safer one, just because I would imagine if the Titans do make a splash, it's probably more of like a true wide receiver one, a boundary type of guy, maybe like a George Pickens, something like that. DK, I feel like his role is kind of safe right now as being like the slot guy. And then, talking about Pickens, Ryan Flournoy is pretty interesting to me as well. I feel like he looks like an NFL player. I know he's a kind of a smaller school guy, 6th-round pick a couple years ago, but he's got the size, he's got the athleticism, he's got like huge mitts on him too. I thought on like a per target basis, he was super efficient this year. His targets per route run, so getting a target basically 1 out of every 5 routes. I kind of like what I saw out of him. Like I think that if the Cowboys were to re-sign Pickens, a 3-wide set of Pickens, Flournoy, and CeeDee Lamb, sort of like read that in odd order, would actually, I think, be really nice for this Cowboys team to run it back with. And I think that it would be, an offense that, again, is going to be throwing it upwards of 60% of the time. I don't think they're going to shift into a run-first type of outfit. So I think the targets are going to be there to go around for a guy like Flournoy, who is basically free right now. Again, pick 213.2 is his ADP right now. And some other guys on there, Torrey Horton of the reigning Super Bowl champions, he, was having a promising season before he got injured. We're going to see what they do with Rashid Shaheed in free agency, of course. So he's a guy that I'm definitely not forgetting about. Keon Coleman, who knows? Who knows? I still think he's talented, but obviously there's some other stuff going on with him to where it's making it a little bit tricky to trust him. But again, when you're talking about him as like pick 201, might still be worth the risk. If he's going to get snaps, if he's going to get playing time alongside Josh Allen, that might be something to kind of hold your nose and consider, even still. Uh, and then lastly on our list, we got Rashad Bateman there. I still think that the book is yet to be fully written on Bateman, but it probably has been in Baltimore. I think if he goes somewhere else, I'll be interested. But last year was obviously pretty tough for him. All right, we're going to go ahead and we're going to get ourselves entered into a nice little underdog draft. I will share the screen once we get that all up and running. And of course, let's see here. I'll go ahead and get our best ball rankings pulled up as well. Our new nav here. Let's see our rankings. Go to best ball. Open that up. Share this tab. Let's pull up the underdog. While that loads, I will go back to the best ball article, just talking through some of those other late guys. And why don't we zip back up to the top? I smartly talked about the top guys at the bottom of this article, but I went ahead and compared my personal top 15 rankings as far as wide receivers go, and I stacked that up against the underdog positional ADP. So I'm still on Jamar Chase, number one. So these are my ranks here on the vertical axis, and then on the horizontal one, you've got the underdog one as well. So I mean, the main spots here that there was some sort of disagreement, I felt like were I don't really understand the Rashee Rice being wide receiver 11 for this year. I mean, like it's not like things were super rosy last year when he got back from suspension. I felt like the Chiefs offense was clunky before Patrick Mahomes suffered a ACL injury towards the end of the season, right? So it's not like they were humming. Now he's got sort of like this crazy offseason to kind of figure out and get himself. He claims he's going to be back in time for week one. Do we really believe it? I'm not sure. And even if he is, like, is he going to look like Patrick Mahomes? It feels like there's no pricing in the Rashee Rice ADP that suggests any sort of risk to his profile. But we're a couple years into his career now. He had the great rookie year, and he gets injured pretty early on in his sophomore season. And then last year suspended, and then it's just sort of up and down the rest of the way. So him being wide receiver 11 doesn't really sit right with me. I think I'm more attuned to I would take Zay Flowers straight up over Rashee Rice. I think that he has access to upwards of like 30% of the targets in the Baltimore offense. Once again, he was wide receiver 7 last year, and it feels like he's getting next to no credit for it. And he's kind of like, in a contract year as well. I feel like he could definitely kind of like have that one big statement year going into the time where it's time to go and get the bag. So I definitely feel like Zay Flowers is being a little bit underdrafted. Malik Neighbors, the market's a little bit higher on him than I am. Hope I'm not glitching out too much here. No, I think we're good. Yeah, with Neighbors, I mean, I get it. I mean, his rookie year was incredible. It's not like I have him that much farther behind market. I think I have him as like wide receiver 10 or so, and market has him more as like wide receiver 6, wide receiver 7, something like that. So I mean, him just like coming off the ACL, I think I'd rather take someone that isn't coming off of that type of injury, especially when there's so many other good options that go in that range. Like Chris Olave, like he definitely should. I mean, he has his injury history, of course, as well, but I feel like he's kind of settled back in, and that this was a huge year that he had. And it feels like New Orleans, like you can almost talk yourself into that offense maybe being something this year. And you certainly feel like Chris Olave like has access to, pretty unfettered wide receiver one type of role there in New Orleans. Probably playing a lot of shootouts. We don't think that they have the type of team that's going to run the ball a ton. So I don't know. To me, I feel like Chris Olave is maybe someone that I would consider uh, maybe a little bit before I do Malik Neighbors. We are close to go time here. Why don't we go ahead and share our screen? We are filled, and it looks like I got the first pick. Wow. Okay. Fascinating. So there we go. We will rock and roll with that. I'm not going to quibble with it. I am never going to be mad about getting access to a Bijan Robinson or a Puka or Jamar Chase, that type of thing. Let's see. We've got a few seconds here till it's go time. Oh, nervous. You can feel the jitters. Draft starts in 9, 8, 7. All right. I'm gonna keep it simple. I know that I had Jamar Chase on the cover of my article here, but I'm going Bijan. Going Bijan. I think that there's a solid case for I think 5, 6 players. To be the number one overall pick. Puka I think makes tons of sense, especially with Matthew Stafford coming back. JSN, we just saw the year that he had. Jamar Chase, he was consensus 1-1 last year. It doesn't take that much brain power to remember just how good he was. He is still very much in his prime. If Joe Burrow stays healthy, I think that he has another wide receiver one type of season in him. And Jahmyr Gibbs, he went 3 here. He's probably my least favorite of the potential guys to go number one. I'm not going to be mad having Jahmyr Gibbs at almost any cost. I just don't know how often I will take him at first overall. But I think that, if I'm picking third, if I'm picking fourth, fifth, like in Gibbs is still there. I mean, so electrifying. I think that this year will be a bit of a bounce back. I feel like Detroit just sort of had a raw deal, really bad luck for so much of last season in so many respects, injury wise. So a bounce back for him makes sense. And I'm not totally sure. I'll have to, I don't know, maybe Chat can help me out with this one as far as what does David Montgomery's contract status look like for next year. I don't know if Gibbs can really be like a 300 carry guy, but I could see them, maybe sloughing that work off to a cheaper option than Montgomery. Things have been pretty chalky so far, just to catch everybody up. So we got after me, we've got Puka, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jamar Chase, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Jonathan Taylor, CeeDee Lamb, CMC, Amon Ra, Devin Achan, Ashton Genty as our next guys up to go. I'll hide everyone's screen names. I know people get a little Rossy about that for for whatever reason. It's February, man. Relax. We're playing in a little $10 dealio. But yeah, we're having fun here. We're into round 2. Very exciting. Let's see here. Ooh, got a couple of tight ends coming off the board. Fascinating. Justin Jefferson finally comes off the board. Malik Neighbors at 2-6. Okay, sorry. All right, I'm locked back in. Ooh, my next pick is coming up with a quickness. Oh, my favorite guy, Rasheed Rice, just got picked. Darn. Whatever will I do? Pickens is interesting. Is he going to end up back in Dallas? Is that going to be worth being the 22nd overall pick? Nico Collins is CJ Stroud seeing ghosts. You know what I mean? The way that he played in the postseason, a little bit concerning. Oh, I guess I don't have to make that call after all. All right, so I have a running back to start out. All right, Georgia boy, that's my guy. Grab Pickens there with my second selection, and Kenneth Walker has really kind of skyrocketed here as we've as the playoffs obviously unfolded. I think maybe winning Super Bowl MVP can be something that can influence a bit of market movement at this time of year. So I went ahead and grabbed Chris Olave and George Pickens at my 2-3 turn. Feel all right about that. I don't feel like amazing about it, but I didn't want to rock the boat too much. Um, Higgins was certainly in consideration. I think I was good. I was going to be good on running back, regardless at this particular spot. I felt like the guys that will be available in a little bit, I think we're a little bit stronger candidates. I like some of these receivers that could have been going a little bit later. So I think you can go a multitude of ways. I'm usually not an early quarterback drafter, so Josh Allen, for as worth it as he likely is there in the early second round, that's not how I do my builds more often than not. At least I need to get a few more drafts under my belt here before I start dabbling in that type of setup. Let's see. Ooh, major running back run here as we get into the third round. So as you can see, six consecutive running backs went. We had Jacobs, Kenneth Walker, Bucky Irving, Chase Brown, Brees Hall, Kyron Williams, and Travis Etienne all in a run. So it feels like there's a cliff as far as the market confidence in the wide receiver ADP. So clearly, you have your top two tight ends right off the board in the second round, and then you get to Chris Olave, AJ Brown there to start the third round, and boom, all of a sudden it's just running back central. Everyone is making a mad dash to get either their first or their second running back. In most of these cases, these guys were grabbing their second running backs. We got one team with three running backs, so really hammering RB to get started with McCaffrey, Barkley, and Kyron to get started, backing it up with Devontae Adams. So a little bit of like Rams love there. We're burning it up. We're burning up the clock here. We are almost back over to me. I got to figure out what I want to do here. I got two receivers. I got a running back already. I will not be taking a quarterback, not yet. Whomst do I like of this group, folks? I know it's sort of goofy, but the day that Jalen Waddle doesn't have any believers, that means I'm no longer of this earth. I still think that Jalen Waddle has a huge season in him at some point. I just hope that he doesn't get saddled with Tua too much longer. Ooh, clock is moving fast here, folks. All right, RJ Harvey, get in, get in the boat here. We're riding. All right, so feel like we have a good shot at him having close to a workhorse workload next year. J.K. Dobbins, it's just hard to trust that he's going to be available for all 17 games. I thought Harvey showed enough as a rookie. That Denver has a great offensive line, and Bo Nix fine enough to where they're going to be playing with the lead a decent bit. I feel like Harvey is going to take a step forward in year two for him. So felt all right about that. So again, catching everybody up that's joining me, I had the one pick in this draft. So I went Bijan, George Pickens, Chris Olave, Jalen Waddle, and RJ Harvey to get things rolling here. All right, what else we got here? Oh, we got a couple of rookies. I suppose that's worthy of discussion here. So Carnell Tate and Makai Lemon. I think those are the first two. Yeah, Jordan Tyson, I think, just went off the board. So three in a row. Carnell Tate, Makai Lemon, Jordan Tyson. The way I rank them, and it's still a little bit fluid. I got to get my head together with our guy Mario Puig to kind of finalize how I'm viewing this rookie class. But my inclination is Makai Lemon. Now, does that mean that he's as the wide receiver one? Now, does that mean necessarily that he's going to be worth, the an end of the fifth round type of selection? I'm not positive. That's going to be a little bit landing spot dependent, but at the same time, you look at some of these other guys, like as awesome as Parker Washington and Michael Wilson were that this past year, like, are they really going to replicate? Are both of them going to replicate exactly what they did or even improve upon it? That's a little bit tougher to ascertain. Whereas you feel like either Lemon or Tate or Tyson, like they're going to be drafted in the first round in all likelihood. They're like a little bit more guaranteed opportunity. Maybe not more so than but at least, I mean, the market says more so than both Washington and Wilson. So looking at my build here, I could probably go in a bunch of different directions here. Hmm. This would be a slam dunk to take Kraft if he wasn't coming off that injury. I'm going Jackson Dart. I don't know. The quarterback pool feels a little funky here. Do I go? Okay, I don't understand Ricky Pearsall or Stephon Diggs in these spots. Let's go Tucker Kraft. Why not? So I know I was just like saying, don't take him there, but I, maybe I wish I took Jacoby Myers. It doesn't make sense to me that Parker Washington is going like a round ahead of Jacoby Myers. That feels wrong to me. Maybe I will be the one that's wrong. The market is generally pretty efficient, but that just seems like a bridge too far. I felt like Myers was the guy that kind of helped make that offense ascend, and they get back to business next year. I think Travis Hunter maybe takes more snaps away from Parker Washington per se than Jacoby Myers, who they also extended before the season was even over. So that feels like what one market efficiency. You'll have to kind of just bear with me and as we go along here. That this isn't my first draft, but I'm still not completely used to the new ADP and the new player pool just yet. So quarterbacks have started to come off the board a little bit. Obviously, Josh Allen and Lamar were the first two off in let's see, end of round 3 and end of round 4. Then Drake May becomes QB3. Then we get to Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrow, Caleb Williams, Jackson Dart, whom I took, Jalen Hurts, Trevor Lawrence. Now Patrick Mahomes comes off the board with the 11th pick of the 7th round. So starting to see quarterbacks get pushed up a little bit. Definitely a different shape than the ADP last year. Like you had like that cluster where it was let's see, it was like Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, right, and Lamar Jackson, right in there. It was anywhere between like the second and late third round, and Jaden Daniels, I think, was in that mix. And then you could have waited, I felt like, until like the eighth round, something like that. Maybe only like Joe Burrow was a guy that was going in between there. It was sort of like a desert at quarterback last year. Now it's a little bit more like there's at least a couple per round. Once like the pull tab is ripped off and quarterbacks start going, you're not going to be able to wait around maybe the same way that you could a year ago. So that's an interesting little development here as this draft unfolds. I start thinking on my cue. If anyone wants to chime in with what they would do next, I'd certainly be willing to entertain any sort of suggestion there. I've just took quarterback and a tight end. I've got 3 receivers. I've got 2 running backs. So kind of a filled out roster. Pollard's just been sneaky productive last couple years. Dowdle, I'm not buying. Him and Chuba, I'm gonna leave that situation alone. Pollard, I'm a little bit worried of like a tail risk. But I don't feel like Spears is the guy to really like do it to him. You know what? Well, I guess I don't get to make that decision anyway. As when Tony Pollard goes off the board right there, I'm not going to take my handcuff. You know what? Take what the board gives me. I like Almanon guy. Next up, what do we do? I'm going to go with the Jaden Reed bounce back. I think that's what I'm going to make a statement with right there. In the 9th round, I still think he has the goods. I still think that this Packers offense has something ahead of it. I think Jaden Reed has a big role in it. I know that it's not quite the same like type of excitement as like a Christian Watson, but my guy Michael agrees with me that Jaden Reed, not a bad pick there. I did take a running back. Shuck was tempting, but it still feels a little early for him too. His ADP checking in at 120. So if I am ultimately interested, maybe I can grab him a little bit later. But when I take a quarterback in the 6th round, I try to not mess with quarterback again for at least a little bit. But again, the QB market it's going to drive. I mean, Shuck is QB 20 going at pick 120. So that your QB 20 last year was going probably like 25, 30 picks later than that. So definitely pushed up. But I do like some little Brenton Strange there a little bit later on. All right, here we go. So coming back around, Juwan Jennings, he was in consideration for me. I feel like he's, depending on the landing spot, I feel like that free agency should be pretty kind to him. And, the type of role that he gets set up with in 2026 and beyond. We got a couple of quarterbacks here with Purdy and Darnold, Corum, Chuba, and then 3 more quarterbacks with Stafford, Goff, and Nix coming off the board. So we have had like 16 quarterbacks, something like that, come off the board. Very interesting. Very different than last year. Mendoza off the board with the on Team Mahomes. No rookie fear from Team 11 here. Also has Mekhi Lemon to add in there as well, along with Fernando Mendoza, who we are expecting to go first overall to the Raiders. Whatever that means for him, I wish him the best of luck. But it's obviously been pretty tough out there since the team moved to Vegas, and arguably the last 20 some odd years for the most part. All right, so we're coming back around. Again, I've got 3 running backs. I've got 4 receivers. I've got 1 quarterback and 1 tight end. So going a bunch of different directions here. Just get a queue set up. George Kittle, I'm just like not gonna bother with that. I mean, he tore his Achilles in the playoffs. Why is he tight end 11? I mean, he's crazy. He could get back, but I'm not going to pay that level of a premium to wait and see. All right, I took Jonah Coleman there. I'm I'm going to go ahead and say that Brenton Strange can back it up with what he did this past year. I know I was kind of casting a bit of doubt on Parker Washington, but man, I think Strange is legit, and I feel less worried about his role within that Jaguars offense than I do about Parker Washington. They have a lot of like expensive pieces to feed as far as those receivers are concerned. Sadiq definitely um, was of interest to me, and he's going as tight end 16 right now. So it wouldn't surprise me if he comes off the board here relatively soon. Oh boy, quarterback getting a little bit dicey in a hurry for your pal. So you have to keep an eye on that. Penix is QB 28. I think things could be worse. It could be worse. Tyler Shuck and Cam Ward coming off the board. Jordan Love, Debo, Dallas Goedert, Woody Marks. All right, so we're cruising along here. We are about halfway through the draft. Again, really appreciate everyone joining me on this Tuesday evening. We got 43 people, I think, watching. So, worse things that you could be doing than just watching a little draft here in February. So, really appreciate it. And we're going to be doing a ton of these here throughout the off season. Basically every single week, at least one of these bad boys. We'll knock out a draft. We'll hang out together, talk about whatever best ball topics you guys want to talk about. Otherwise, I will bloviate about whatever stuff I'm writing for the website over at rotowire.com. Again, if you haven't signed up at rotowire.com, you can use that code YouTube15 when you go to rotowire.com. Bada bing, bada boom, 15% off any subscription. That's really nice when fantasy baseball season is right around the corner. It also gets you behind the paywall for all of our NFL stuff as well. If you're in season for NBA, also got you covered there. We have the best NBA stuff out there, in my opinion. So whatever sport floats your boat, we got you covered. Check it out. Again, YouTube 15 is your code. And again, I'm going to be doing a ton of best ball content. That's sort of my main bread and butter at the site these days. All right, we're coming back around. Alvin Kamara comes off the board. I'm going to grab Keishon Butte. Why not? And Charbonnet, tough. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and defend the Trey Benson pick because I could see where people are throwing their hands up. And I get it. He did next to nothing this past year. He had total like silver spoon run out, essentially, where, if you faded James Conner, you were right. James Conner gets hurt early on in the year. It's apparent that he's going to miss the rest of the season. Oh, Trey Benson season all day. Nope. He gets hurt. And they never really rule him out, right? They never rule him out for the season. He just doesn't get off of injured reserve. So you're just kind of waiting. You're not trying to cut him. This is spoken like a man who had a lot of Trey Benson and was waiting for him to come back. So all of this to say that I still believe in him. And I think if he's fully healthy going into this season, I'm just as great of a career as James Conner has had. I was ready to be done with him for fantasy purposes going into last year. I am worried that this is an offense there in Arizona, although they've got a new offense with Mike LaFleur taking over as the head coach, but it's like they couldn't run the ball whatsoever. Again, they were down to what, their third, their fourth, their fifth running backs last year. So of course they were going to struggle to run the ball, but it felt like they just weren't interested in running the ball. So some sort of philosophical change is going to be necessary for Arizona in order for that Benson pick to work. But just kind of looking at these other running back candidates here, who can scale up, who can be the running back one if called upon. And like I would say that Zach Charbonnet is even better suited for that. But Zach Charbonnet also suffered an ACL injury in January. So feel like it was just a little bit tougher for me to justify who's still drafting Jonathan Brooks. That's so crazy. Like I'm rooting for Jonathan Brooks, but why do the Panthers have three running backs going the top 160 picks? Between Chuba and Dowdle, that's not really doing it for me necessarily. All right, what do we got here? Where's Kirk Cousins going to play this year? I would like to know everyone's thoughts on that. I got a little bit cheeky in a draft a couple weeks ago, and I took Mac Jones. I feel like he might get a shot somewhere, but we'll see. I feel like I need some better or some more receiver depth. What say y'all? I think I have an idea or several. Yep, I will take Shamir DK. Wrote about him a lot in my article, so I'll get to talking about him here in a second. And then I'll take Michael Penix. We were hurting at quarterback there. I was not willing to go into the McCarthy zone. I wasn't really willing to do the Mac Jones thing again, at least like on purpose. You know what I mean. Wow, hot take here from Mike saying that Jonathan Brooks is the next J.K. Dobbins. He's going to shock the world, be a top 36 running back. I'd love to see it. I really would. I'm just skeptical. I have a hard time seeing. It just feels like the injury gods have been too cruel to him so far. Yeah, it's hard to see, and that they have some good running backs on that team already, as it is, to where it's going to be hard for him to crack that rotation. So going back to my Shamir DK pick, so just kind of talking about the Titans, generally speaking, I think they're a really interesting team going into this year. I think that, I think largely people have written them off or forgotten about them and don't really blame them. It was abysmal year last year, but I think Robert Salah brings a modicum of sustain or stability to that team. And I think Brian Dable also, is a guy that it's not like he didn't have a long enough leash with the Giants, but it did feel like other than that first year where they kind of caught lightning in a bottle with Daniel Jones in 2022, it felt like things just kind of broke against him a lot of the time. And I felt like the roster itself wasn't all that good. Not to say that the Titans have a good roster, but they can improve it in a hurry. They have so much cap space. They've got a lot of draft capital. And I think that Cam Ward looked all right this year. I don't think he looked amazing, but I think he looked good enough to where you can believe in his weapons a little bit for fantasy. And I think DK, he's a guy that he was killing it as far as the all-purpose stuff in the return game. I think he should be that starting slot for them. So maybe not a ton of downfield stuff. I know for underdog, we want some touchdown upside. So maybe Aomanor is a little bit more interesting in that sense. But I don't know. I feel like DK he's got that 4.3 speed. He's got some run after the catch ability, obviously. Let's get some Torrey Horton. What else do I need? No, I'm still- I took Jake Tonges. I just again, I feel worried about George Kittle and his utility for this year. I mean, Mike, to your point there on DK, like the Titans, they seem like they would be a prime candidate to take a receiver early, or I think splash the pot in free agency. But the thing is, okay, so the Titans pick fourth. There isn't a receiver that's going to go fourth. I don't think. I don't think there's a receiver that should go really in the top 10 in this particular class. So I think we're looking at a free agent that could be again problematic for the Titans, or maybe top of round two, top of round two. But I think that they would take the type of guy that maybe would more so eat off of like Alec Elmanor's plate than Tremere DK's. I think the DK's role might be a little bit safer in that sense. Steve chimes in. He loves Torrey Horton. So, uh, big Torrey Horton guy myself. Excited to see what he can do this coming year, especially if Shaheed is no longer with the team. So, don't forget about him just because he got injured. I think he's the real deal. All right. So, we've got, what do we got? We got three more rounds here, folks, to get this going. And again, big thanks to Steve for chiming in, Mike and Jamie, all hanging out this evening. Love it. Love talking some best ball with you guys. I feel like I'm going to get yelled at if I don't have a rookie. Got to figure that out. I think I know who it's going to be, too. It's four tight ends too many, though. All right, I'll just say for the record, I like Eli Stowers. I don't know if he makes sense for this draft, but I like Eli Stowers. Let's see here. John, I'm on the clock. This is brutal. All right, Ollie. Give me some of that. Who's Ted Hurst? What? Okay, there's my rookie. Finally, Eric McAllister out of TCU. Big guy. I think that just kind of like scratching the surface. I think he might be a little bit raw to produce this season, but there have been more raw guys than him that have come out of the gate and done all right. So I felt okay about him. Do we think that Horton is going to kind of challenge the JSN ceiling? I don't necessarily see it that way. I feel like the Seahawks are pretty. I mean, we'll see what their backfield situation looks like for next year. Like are they going to pony up uh, for for Kenneth Walker? What's Charbonnet going to look like? But Horton, he's the big kind of string bean type of guy. At 6'2" and a little bit under 200 pounds. He could get some red zone, but like I just feel like at this rate, like JSN's just sort of like, why would you do anything different? Why would you do anything other than get him the ball? Let's see here. All right, so I'm gonna be. This is a very thin quarterback build that I've got here. I've got two quarterbacks, six running backs, eight receivers, and three tight ends. All right, we're just gonna kind of go. Yeah, we're staying thin. No, you need to take three quarterbacks, especially if you don't know what the buy is. buy situation is. Chat, does anybody want to give me a favorite late quarterback? I'll give you some options here. We got Cousins, Tua, Mac Jones, Nuss over Trinidad Chambliss, Quinn Ewers, Deshaun Watson. Probably not going to draft him. We're coming up here on it. These might be wasted. Brutal situation here. Hopefully it's not going to come back to bite me. Yeah, I think Cousins is probably the pick. As boring as that may be, probably need a little bit of boring when your other guys are Dart and Penix, right? All right, Cuzzo. May he please find greener pastures once he gets cut and hits free agency. But that's going to round out my team. Is it a great team? I don't know, but you can't say definitively that it stinks because it's February. And you don't know where these guys are going to end up. Not all of them. So I feel all right about this team. Again, I went Bijan, Pickens, Chris Olave, Jalen Waddle, R.J. Harvey, Jackson Dart, Tucker Kraft, Kyle Monangai, Jaden Reed, Jonah Coleman, Brenton Strange, Keyshawn Butte, Trey Benson, Chimere Dike, Michael Penix, Torrey Horton, Jake Tonjes, Ollie Gordon, Eric McAllister, and Kirk Cousins. So that's like your kind of first snapshot of how the ADP looks for this year. You know, it's good to be getting an eye on it now, getting your eyes adjusted to it. Obviously, very, very different than what we were doing last year. Yeah. So I think that this is an interesting ADP. I think that it's interesting how quarterback is getting drafted right now with just a higher volume of them going in the top 8 rounds and not much of like a cliff or a gap necessarily. I feel like tight end is a little bit funky. Like I think we could have expected both McBride and Bowers to be, second round picks. That went according to plan. Where it wound up the rest of the way, though, Colston Loveland being, I think, the third tight end off the board is pretty interesting. And then you get to Tyler Warren, Sam Laporta, Tucker Kraft. So kind of a youth movement as far as the top of the tight ends. We're concerned. Those are kind of my big takeaways. Again, there was also a run there in the 5th round where we had 3 rookie wide receivers go right in a row between Carnell Tate, Mekhi Lemon, and Jordan Tyson. Again, my favorite pick of that particular group is probably Mekhi Lemon, but the combine is going to tell us a little bit more about that. So I'll be writing about some of these rookies and who to look out for at the combine a little bit later on this month. And I'm also, I just wrote up a big piece about wide receivers up on the site. I'm going to do the same thing with tight ends as well. So hopefully get that out to you guys by the end of this week. And you are right. I do have some FOMO. I wish I had the Shuck and Dart combo at quarterback. That would have been a fun one. I feel like both of those guys are in for good year 2s. And Dart just scares me because he plays so physical. You worry about him getting dinged up. But all right, it is 11 o'clock now. I've streamed for an hour. I feel like we've covered some good ground, y'all. So I'm gonna wrap it up here. But again, really appreciate everybody tuning in. Where did I go? On this particular stream. Sorry about that. Go ahead, go to rotowire.com, use that code YouTube15 to get 15% off your subscription. Again, huge opportunity to do that right now with baseball season. Pitchers and catchers are reporting right now. Are you not signed up at RotoWire? What are you doing? And also, of course, you're going to get all of our football off-season stuff because the season never ends. It just changes. We're on to 2026. We're already drafting best ball, baby. So I'll be doing this every single week. So if you missed tonight's, you can obviously watch it on YouTube, and then I'll be back again streaming this next week. But just for me, John McKechnie, thanks for listening, y'all.